so today we are going to discuss the sample paper for the class 10th English Term 2 examination. So here we are going to see the structure of the paper, कि paper आपका कितने sections में divided है, what is the weightage of the marks that the chapters or the sections are carrying, plus we are going to solve the questions together. Alright, so now let's move on to the very first section, which is your section A, that comprises of your reading comprehension. So students, here you will be getting two passages related to your reading comprehension. Alright, so the first passage says, it talks about the impact of human activity on environment. Alright, so this is something that we are going to read first, and then we are going to move on to the questions which are there given for this unseen passage. Alright, so now let's see what the passage says. It says, every form of human activity upsets or changes the wildlife complex of the area unceasingly and unavoidably. Man has destroyed many forms of wildlife for no reasonable purpose. Small sections of the community, for their own narrow, selfish ends, have destroyed many things of general interest. Expediency has often led man to make grave blunders, and in land use, habitat destruction, and the extermination of many forms of wildlife. In his everyday life, man's attitude is determined in the main by purely practical considerations. Ethical or moral consideration comes afterward. Looked at in this way, the disappearance from Britain of such animals such as wolf and wild boar can be more easily understood. In our intensively cultivated and overpopulated country, there was no room for such large animals. I beg your pardon, such large mammals. The one a predator of big livestock and the other a pest to the agriculture. Thus, man's first attitude to animals is the result of their effect on their own survival, or what he considers to be their effect on this survival. Then there is this concern with sport. The animals he sets aside for this purpose are given special protection, and war is waged unceasingly on any other creatures that may be a danger to them. This creates many problems, and man has made serious errors in his destruction of predators. Until recent years, all hawks and falcons were destroyed as vermin by game preserves. This meant the destruction of the kestrels, which are useful to the farmer. It meant the destruction of owls, which are useful to the farmer. So here you had a sport acting against the interest of food production. Result of all this is that all the killing of predators did not in any way improve man's sport. It has been clearly shown by modern research that eagles, hawks, falcons, and predatory mammals have not the slightest effect on the number of game birds anywhere. Broadly speaking, man wages war against the creatures which he considers harmful, even when his warfare makes little or no difference to the number of his enemies. And the courageous, those creatures which are useful, even though their attacks on pests make little difference to the numbers of the pest. It would be true to say, therefore, that our attitude to song, birds, to most birds of prey and to many of our predatory animals arises from the fact that they have either been proved useful or of no consequence. Either way, from this we have developed the idea of conservation, which means preserving what we have left of our heritage of wildlife and even finding room for the retirees which may be a little damage on the site. So now that we have read the entire passage, we have just got an idea that yes, this passage deals with what? Deals with the human activity and the impact of them on the various animals and the birds. That means the living creatures. राइट. सो हमने ये पूरा पैराग्राफ पढ़ा, हमने पूरे पैसेज पढ़ा, इससे हमें कुछ आइडिया लगा कि अच्छा ओके दिस पैसेज डील्स विद दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक. So now let's see the questions which are there. So it says, based on your understanding of the passage, answer any 5 questions from the 6 given below. Now you're having a choice that you can answer 5 questions, but since we are discussing the entire paper, so we are going to discuss each and every question. We are not going to skip any question, all right? Now, the first question says, what has been man's attitude towards wildlife? Now, students, the trick here to solve your unseen passages quickly is कि आपके दिमाग में एक चीज़ फिट हो जानी चाहिए कि फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, that means first question the answer is supposed to be in the very first paragraph. Similarly, if we talk about the second, it might happen कि फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ की एंडिंग में कुछ इसका आंसर हो या सेकंड पैराग्राफ की बिगनिंग में कुछ ऐसा आंसर हो. सो यू नीड नॉट गेट मजल्ड अप. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि कोई फोर्थ पैराग्राफ को क्वेश्चन बना के आपको फर्स्ट पे वो पुट अप कर देंगे, नहीं होता है ऐसा. यू विल ऑलवेज गेट योर फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन and you will always find the answer of your first question in your very first paragraph. So keep this in mind. But इसका मतलब ये नहीं है you are not going to read the passages. You need to read the passages really very carefully in order to answer some tricky questions. All right. So now let's move on to the answer of the very first question. It asks, what has been man's attitude towards wildlife? So we are going to move on to the very first paragraph, and here in the second line, we can find the answer that man has destroyed many forms of wildlife for no reasonable purpose. So it says, man has destroyed many forms of wildlife for no reasonable purpose. You are going to start your answer with this. Then you are going to explain. It is asking about what has been the man's attitude. So man's attitude is determined in the main purely practical and consideration, ethical or moral consideration comes afterward. So you can see that how we spotted the answer. So our question asked that what has been man's attitude towards wildlife? So we started our answer with man has destroyed many forms of wildlife for no reasonable purpose. Now, if you want to add more to it, you can say that man did it because of their selfish purpose, because of their selfish greed. They were greedy, and that's why they have laid a negative impact on the wildlife. Also, you are then going to add that man's attitude is determined in the main by purely practical consideration, ethical or moral consideration comes afterwards. So what this line means is that कि जो आदमी होता है वो इतनी ज़्यादा प्रैक्टिकलिटी में जा चुका है कि वो प्रैक्टिकल चीज़ों को ज़्यादा वेटेज देता है और एथिक्स और मोरल्स जो होते हैं वो एक साइड पे रह जाते हैं. सो दिस इज हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू फ्रेम योर आंसर्स इन ऑर्डर टू स्कोर full marks in your unseen passages. You can write beautiful answers because यहाँ पर आपके पास काफ़ी सारा content है where you can cross check. All right. So you need to find the answer. Then you need to add 1 or 2 additional points, and then you are going to give a closing to your answer. All right. So this is the answer of our very first question. Now let's move on to the second question and see what it says. So it says, how is the justification given for the killing of wolves and wild boar in Britain? So इसका आंसर हमें मिलेगा second paragraph में, where we can see the disappearance from Britain of such animals as wolf and wild boar can be more easily understood. In our intensively cultivated and overpopulated country, there was no room for such large mammals. The one a predator of big livestock and the other pest to agriculture. So we have got the idea, we have got the answer here कि क्या justification दी गई कि in this overpopulated city we don't have space for such large mammals, and now they have related कि दोनों mammals की quality क्या है and where do they live, what kind of an environment do they do they fit in. So here you are going to find the answer of your second question. So this is how the man has justified the killing of the two big mammals. All right. Now, let's move on to the next question. It says, why has man been killing predators? Now we are going to find this answer in the third paragraph. So the answer starts from here. The killing of predators did not in any way improve man's sport. It has been clearly shown by modern research that the eagles, hawks, falcons have not had any slightest of the effect on the numbers of the birds anymore. Now, it says, the question asks that why man has been killing this. So, the answer is here. So it says that these wildlife are kind of a destruction in man's sport. Like they might find it, or they may find it, very difficult to live along with these wildlife. So that is why they have been killing these wildlife. Though killing them is not, is not giving them a kind of a sport, because ये इतने ज़्यादा हैं numbers में that even if they kill one or two, the effect isn't visible that much. कि वो extension point पे नहीं चले गए हैं, but of course, if we keep on killing the wildlife, extension point आ जाएगा. So you are going to say that the man has been killing these wildlife or the predators to enjoy their sport. Some of them have, made it their activity of hunting and shooting down the wildlife creatures, right? Some people have a hobby. So, इस वजह से the man has been killing the predators. They feel that they are a threat to their sport. So now sometimes what happens that you cannot get a concrete answer in your passage. So in that case, what you have to do is you have to frame the answer. You can take the main points from the passages and then you are supposed to frame the answers. All right. Now let's move on to the next question. It says, in the last paragraph, the writer talks about the contradictory opinion. Explain. So in the fourth paragraph, the writer has, given a very contradictory opinion on this fact of man killing the wildlife. So here you need to summarize it. Now students, when you summarize such passages or such paragraphs, then you need to be very specific. Specific in the sense that what the writer is trying to say, all right? The points writer has mentioned. Also, if there is any fact here, fact as in if there is a concrete statement, then you need to mention the concrete statement while you are framing the answers, because here for this passage you are supposed to explain the passage. How has writer critically, or how has writer criticized, or how has the writer given his opinion on it. So you need to give it a nice precise paragraph, a paragraph which has been explained briefly. So you need to first understand what the writer is trying to say, all right? Then you need to mention the points if there are any concrete points which are supposed to be the part of your answer. So this is how you're going to frame your answer when you get such questions where you need to explain a passage or a paragraph, all right? Now, the last question, what is the antonym of endangering? So, endangering is You can write aid, protect. So there are a number of words. So यहाँ पर the question hasn't asked us कि इस word का इस paragraph में से कोई synonym या हमें antonym mark करके दिखाओ. No, we don't have to do it. We just have to mention the antonym. So this is kind of scoring. If you are good with your vocab, so you can score complete marks. कई बार होता है कि हम जब एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, हम कोई ऐसा टॉपिक डील करते हैं तो हमारी एक्सप्लेनेशन कई बार अप टू द मार्क नहीं होती, सो हाफ मार्क्स या कुछ कट हो जाते हैं. बट जब इस तरह के सेंटेंस इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, बेग योर पार्डन, सो वहाँ पर हमारे स्कोर करने के चांस बढ़ जाते हैं. क्यों? बिकॉज यू जस्ट हैव टू मेंशन वन एंटोनियम एंड दैट टू विथ योर नॉलेज. आपको नहीं बोला गया है कि पैसेज में से जाके गो एंड पिक आउट द वर्ड. सो यू कैन हैव अ good opportunity to score full marks here. Okay, so we missed out on one question, that is, which two large mammals are mentioned in above paragraph, which taking more place? So the mammals mentioned are wolf and जिनके बारे में बोला गया है that one lives on a big livestock and other relies on the pest in agriculture. So you need to frame it that way. All right. So we are done with the very first passage of this paper. So students, now your second section, the section B, deals with your writing and grammar section. All right. So the first question which you can see here is your analytical paragraph. All right. So अब हम एक बार क्वेश्चन देख लेते हैं. Then we are going to discuss some points कि हमें क्या क्या points याद रखने चाहिए while we are answering, while we are writing such analytical paragraphs, and then we'll discuss some points जो आप इस paragraph में इस question के लिए अपने paragraph में mention कर सकते हो. Now, before I begin with telling you the tips and the tricks to solve these questions, उससे पहले I'm going to tell you that in your writing and your grammar section, in your writing, you get an option between two writing pieces. All right. Like here, you are having a letter writing, and then you are having your analytical paragraph writing. So you can attempt either of them. Okay. Now, let's read this question. The recent pandemic has had an adverse effect on every facet of life. Young Minds conducted a survey to show how the mental health of young people has been affected during this time. Young people took part in the survey, which shows how the lockdown has not only impacted jobs and the economy, but also the mental health. Analyze the given data and write an interpretation in 100 to 120 words on how lockdown in the times of COVID-19 has affected the mental health of the people. So you have understood कि analytical paragraph किस चीज़ के लिए लिखना है या किस topic पे लिखना है. The mental health of youth in this lockdown during this pandemic. So there's a survey body, and the name of the survey body is Young Minds. All right. So Young Minds is the survey body who has conducted a survey on the youth to check the impact of the pandemic, the lockdown, on their mental well-being. So here you have been provided with a data. All right. So the blue portion of the chart depicts about the much worse condition. Then the red talks about the bit worse condition. Then here the green talks about there's no difference in the state of mental health. Then in the purple one talks about a bit better, and the other, this green, emerald green color, talks about much better. All right, you have been given the percentages. Now, when you write such analytical paragraphs where the graph is given to you, the first thing you need to remember is that you need to mention all the information. You need to mention all the information. Information से मेरा क्या मतलब है? The numbers, the facts, the figures which are there in your question. You first need to introduce, all right. Like here in this case, if you start writing an analytical paragraph, how are you going to start your paragraph? You will say that the recent pandemic has created an ill effect not only on the economy, not only on the other thing, has not only impacted the jobs and the economy, but has severely impacted the mental well-being of people. In this series, the survey body Young Minds conducted a survey to show how the mental health of young people has been affected during this time. Then you will say that according to the survey, you are going to mention the facts and figures. For example, according to the survey, 27% of the population has undergone a much severe condition of, or you can say a much poor mental health condition, whereas 45% of the population has suffered a bit worse. Then likewise you are going to mention the number. So first is going to be your introduction. I'll just pen it down in series. So first is going to be your introduction. Then second, you are going to talk about the, you may say, organization in this sense, okay? I'm not talking in general, but related to this question. So पहले हमने introduce कर दिया कि what is our topic of an analysis. Then we introduced the organization which conducted the survey. All right, we have given them a brief background about this analytical paragraph. अगर रीडर्स को पता ही नहीं होगा कि किसने सर्वे किया, ये जो हम यहाँ पे फैक्ट्स मेंशन कर रहे हैं वो फैक्ट्स कितने वैलिड हैं, कितने क्रेडिबल हैं, तो नो वन इज गोइंग टू रीड आवर passage, our analysis, right? So we need to give credibility to our analysis. So that is the reason we have mentioned the body which has conducted the survey. All right, so we introduced about the organization. Then we talked about the facts available. Clear? Now, after we have discussed about the facts available is are these percentage, all right? Then the very important thing that you need to remember is that your analytical paragraph needs to be a crux of the data given here. It needs to be crux, it needs to have the crux data, then it needs to be crisp, all right, and it needs to be well summarized, right? Now, the last point which you need to remember related to your writing is your tense. You are supposed to use same tense throughout the paragraph. If you are talking in the past tense, you need to use past tense throughout your paragraph. Similarly, if you are talking in present continuous or past continuous, you need to maintain the tense throughout your paragraph. All right. So, this is your question. I have given you a brief idea about how to write the introduction, how to introduce the body of a body who has conducted survey, how to analyze the data which is there. You need to be very careful. You know, just don't mix up in hurry. कई बार क्या होता है कि हम जल्दी करने के चक्कर में we switch the facts, we switch the figures. कई बार हम red वाले box को हम blue वाले के साथ mix कर देते हैं because we don't have that steady state of mind. So students, when it's your examination time, the first thing you need to work on is to keep your mind steady. नहीं, अगर लग रहा है कि अरे यार ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, don't panic, don't worry about the questions you don't know. You just try to keep yourself calm, just, relax yourself. Don't get paranoid seeing the paper. Work on the questions where you have a scope to fetch marks. All right. ऐसे जल्दी जल्दी में ये नहीं करना कि मैं 3 क्वेश्चंस नहीं आते तो हमने बाकी के क्वेश्चंस खराब कर दिए. नो, यू नीड टू हैव अ peaceful mind, then only you can attempt a paper. All right. So be very, very, very specific with the facts which are there for your analytical paragraph, and just keep these 5 points in mind and then write your paragraph. Now let's move on to the next question, which is an optional question, of course, but then since we are discussing the entire paper, so we'll discuss the pattern of this question also. So it says, you are the head of the Department of Mathematics in Jesus Mary School, New Delhi. Write a letter to the sales manager, Cambridge University Press, New Delhi, requesting them a list of magazines, newsletters and journals of mathematics to send to the head of the department. You are Dr. D.K. Singh. Alright, so now just discuss the format. How are you supposed to write the letter? So first is your sender's address. You are Dr. D.K. Singh. You are from which school? Jesus and Mary School, right? So you are going to mention here alright, Jesus and Mary School, New Delhi. Then you will mention the date. Then you will mention the receiver's address. So it is which? Cambridge University Press, right? New Delhi. Then you'll write, dear sir, then you will give your subject, all right, and then you will start with your letter. Now since you are writing a letter of placing an order, you are placing an order, all right, so उसमें आप क्या करोगे, you are going to give your requirement, then you are going to seek for the discount or any of the offers, and then you are going to give the details as per like when do you want it, by when do you want these things to be available and everything, and then you are going to, the last is your thanking you, yours sincerely, and the name which is given there for you, that is your Dr. D.K. Singh. All right. Now, here's a trick, here's a tricky thing which you need to keep in mind, क्योंकि कई बार हम लोग confuse हो जाते हैं. जैसे हमारे इसमें क्या था कि starting में लिख दिया था you are the head of the department of mathematics in Jesus and Mary School. अब कई बार बच्चे कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं, उन्हें लगता है कि डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स वहाँ से भेज रहा है या कुछ ऐसे कर रहा है, तो वो क्या करते हैं, जीसस एंड मेरी स्कूल की जगह वो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स या कुछ लिख देते हैं. यू नीड नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज्ड, दिस इज योर डेजिग्नेशन, ऑल राइट. सो यहाँ पर जब आप लास्ट में थैंकिंग यू योर सिंसियरली डॉक्टर डी.के. सिंह, देन यू आर गोइंग टू एड योर डेजिग्नेशन. सो दिस टॉक्स अबाउट योर designation, that you are HOD of mathematics department, all right. Then you are going to write the name of the school, then the place, location, then the date, then the receiver's address, then dear sir, then your subject, and then your letter begins, all right. So this is your format, this is how you are going to attempt your question. If this is the question of placing an order, this is how you are going to attempt the question. All right. So now with this, we are done with the writing section. Now let's move on to the grammar section. So this question says, the following paragraph has not been edited. There's one error in each line. Identify the error and write its correction against the correct blank number. Remember to underline the correction. First has been done for you. So here you need to omit. So this topic is your omission and editing. All right. So the paragraph has not been edited. You need to edit the paragraph first. So what you have to do is that you need to mark the incorrect word. You need to write the incorrect word here, and then you need to write the correct word here. So students, now you are getting time. This is a very short paragraph. You can read the paragraph and try writing the correct and the incorrect ones. And then we are going to discuss that what is the correct answer. So now you are getting time. Read this paragraph, write the correct answers, and then we are going to discuss. So now let's read this paragraph. Paper were first made by the Egyptians from the plant named papyrus. For the long time, papyrus was used as writing material. So this is your passage. The first one has been done for you. Ki paper were nahi, paper was. So similarly for the second line, kya hoga? So from the plant names papyrus nahi, name papyrus. Names is wrong and name is right. Then here for the long time nahi, for a long time. So names and the were incorrect and name and a were the correct answer for this passage. Alright, I hope Many of you might have got the correct answers, and those who haven't got correct answers, you need to be very specific कि इस तरह के भी small common errors भी हो सकते हैं, जैसे names is nothing, right? It is name papyrus, right? So इस तरह से you need to be a little careful while you are solving the passages related to editing and omitting, all right? Now, the next question is that you are given a comic strip. You need to read the comic strip and then you need to write it here. So, अगर हम ये कर रहे हैं, अगर हम read करके फिर हम उसको लिख रहे हैं, so what it is? It is your reported speech. If you remember, when I was teaching you this module, I talked about the grammatical passages which comes related to your reported speech. So this is how you will be getting your passages. You may be given a comic strip, or you may get a dialogue, you may get an interview. So that is how you are going to frame your answers for this. So let's read this comic strip. So it says, Supandi, what are you doing standing alone here? Uncle, I am trying to win a Nobel Prize. How will standing in my rice field help you win a Nobel? Because that's how it's... Okay, so here's the next dialogue. I've heard that the people who have won Nobel Prizes were all outstanding in various fields. Because that's how it's won. So the uncle says, oh, all right. So we have read the entire conversation. Now let's answer these questions. So I saw Supandi standing in the field. I asked him, let me write it here, what was he doing? He replied that reply, he said that, Uncle, I am trying to win a Nobel Prize. He replied that he was trying to win a Nobel Prize. All right. Then I was confused and I inquired how standing in the rice field would help him do so. He stumped by me saying that he has heard that people who won Nobel Prizes has been outstanding in their fields. All right. So now you must have got an idea कि किस तरह से you are going to attempt your reported speech के questions. So this is how you are going to get your questions. You might get a comic strip, you might get an interview, you might get a dialogue to write like we have done in our practice sessions. So this is how you are going to solve it. All right. So here when it comes to reported speech, I've told you that reported speech के लिए you need to be a little careful कि आप किस tense में बात कर रहे हो and कौन से tense में change होता है. So जैसे ही I read this question that it's a comic strip and then you need to write down the answers, I quickly made out कि ये reported speech का question है. So you need to be actually really thorough with all the topics which are there in your syllabus. All right. So with this, we are done with your writing and the grammar portion, which was your section B. Now let's move on to the last section. The last, or let's say the second last, you get 4 sections, right? You have the long answers section as well. So let's move on to the next section, which deals with your literature portion. All right. Now, अब यहाँ पर you can say that the question says that answer any 6 questions in 30 to 40 words. Alright, that means you need to write in a summarized manner, not in more than 50 words. Okay, let's maximum can be 50 words. अगर वो 30 to 40 words बोल रहा है, then maximum is कि you can write your answers in 50 words. Alright, so let's read the first question. Why didn't Wally want to make friends with the elderly woman? Now, you have read the entire story, right? आपको सारे reasons पता है that why the character didn't want to be friend with the elderly woman. Now, how are you going to frame your answers? So, you're going to give a nice introduction, because the person who is checking your paper, assume that the person is completely unaware of the story. So, you need to introduce a little, alright? Then you need to give a character sketch. अब character sketch से मेरा मतलब ये नहीं है कि you are going to start you'll start writing 100 words. No, character sketch means कि जो ये elderly woman के बारे में बात हो रही है वो उसे क्यों नहीं वाली को क्यों नहीं पसंद थी, because the elderly woman was a little repulsive, then she had some ugly ugly appearance in the sense that she used to chew beetles and then she used to wear those weird earrings which Wally doesn't like. So हम किसका character sketch दे रहे हैं, हम Wally की preferences का as well as the elderly woman जिसके बारे में बात हो रही है, हमने उस lady का character sketch दिया है कि वो कैसी थी, कि वो एक weird सी earrings पहनती थी, then she used to chew beetles and her mouth was always filled with that beetle juice. So that was something which used to annoy Wally. So that is how you're going to write your answer. You're going to give an intro, then we'll give a character sketch of the person we are going to talk here, and then we are going to justify the stand. So हमने जब ये सारी qualities mention कर दी उस elderly woman की, तो the reader understood कि अच्छा ठीक है, maybe this is the thing why the person didn't like this woman. So students, what I intend to tell you here is that you need to be a little more specific while you're writing your answers, while you're framing your answers. The way you frame your answers will help you fetching marks. So यहाँ के important points मैंने आपके साथ discuss कर लिए, that she didn't like that elderly woman. Why? Because the elderly woman was little repulsive, then had a weird appearance, she used to chew beetles, then her mouth used to be filled with all that beetle juice and everything, and that was the reason why she never liked this elderly woman. Alright, now let's read the second question here. Why was Kissa Gautami sad? What did she do in her grief? So यहाँ पर भी first हम बताएंगे कि क्या हुआ था किसा के साथ, that she was sad because her son was dead. her son died, and what did she do in her grief? She held her son in her hand and she roamed about the entire city, moving from or going from neighbors to neighbors, and then neighbors called her mad. Why? Because her son was already dead, and then also, she was taking his son in her hand and was moving from one place to another to seek treatment. All right. So this is how you are going to frame it. These are the points which you need to mention while you are framing your answer. Then the third, write a brief character sketch of Lomov. Now, character sketch, a brief character sketch, that means you can maximum exceed up to 50 words, right? So, you are going to just mark the important things कि उसकी appearance कैसी थी, उसका behavior कैसा था, then what was his plan of proposal and what was his definition of him having a partner. So, इस तरह के main points आप pick up करोगे to give a character sketch of this person. All right. Now the next question: why does Amanada want to be a mermaid, and what could she do if she were a mermaid? So सबसे पहले you are going to define who she was, क्या age bracket था, and then you are going to define कि वो उसे mermaid क्यों बनना था, so that she could move freely and make beautiful curves and curves. All right. और उसके बाद फिर what could she do if she were a mermaid? So again कि उसको लगता था कि अब अगर वो mermaid होगी तो she'll be free and she'll be able to explore and she'll be able to carve out beautiful things and other all things which are mentioned in your textbook. So you need to mention those qualities. Also, just add one more line that for Ramananda, mermaid was a symbol of freedom. All right, just add this line and this will give a little more weightage to your answer. All right. Now, the next question. What other interests besides science did Richard Ebright pursue? So apart from science, he was interested in collecting stones, fossils, and then coins. Then he was interested in stargazing, etc. All right. So इस वाले क्वेश्चन के लिए you are simply going to answer about the choice, about the interest of the person. All right. Now, the sixth question: what did Meme Forrester tell Maltida about the reality of a necklace? So सबसे पहले you are going to tell that the original necklace was lost, and in compensation to that, the other person got a necklace for $36 francs or something, and lied to his wife that this was the same necklace which costed 500 francs or something. The exact number you need to just see and mention it. So यहाँ पर जब हमने अपना आंसर स्टार्ट किया तो हमने पहले थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन दिया कि नेकलेस के साथ क्या हुआ था जो इस तरह से दैट द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग अबाउट द रियलिटी कि ऐसा क्या हुआ था नेकलेस के साथ. सो यू आर गोइंग टू मेंशन दैट द नेकलेस वाज लॉस्ट एंड उसके compensation में this things happened. So this is how you are going to frame your answer here. Now the seventh question, who was the hack driver? What really hurt the feeling of the narrator in the end? So the answer here is that the hack driver was Lutkins himself. And why was the feelings of the narrator sad? Because he and his mother were laughing at the narrator as if then the quotes which the narrator has given there in the story, you need to mention it. But when you're talking about the hack driver, then explain a little bit that what did this hack driver used to do. He used to take lawyers and everything, no? So you need to mention it. You need to give the insight about what this person used to do, and then you are going to tell that why narrator's feelings were hurt at the end of the story. All right. This is your last section, the C section, because here you are having your long answers as well. All right. So let's see what it says. Answer any two of the followings in about 120 words. So there are three questions here. You need to answer any two. All right. So let's discuss all the three questions. So education is always a great asset in the life of a woman. How did Bholi, an educated girl, free the challenge posed by Bishamber's greed? Then the second question is, one should never judge a book by its cover. Elucidate the statement in reference to the poem, The Tale of a Custard Dragon. Then the third is, mention the two stories about the origin of tea. All right. So you need to answer any two questions. Now, when you get these kind of a question, I will prefer you कि you go with the one where you can write more. All right. When you're going to write more, it will help you to showcase your vocab skills. So you can frame a much better answers. All right. So जैसे पहला वाला question, it is very interesting to answer. All right, हम थोड़ा सा highlight कर सकते हैं the importance of education, and then we are going to connect it to the story, because यहाँ पे word limit is 120 words. Obviously you need a content to write, right? So in दोनों ही questions में, if I say that you have a scope of developing your content, ठीक है, you can give an insight, you can give a highlight on the importance of education in the life of a woman, and then you are going to talk about the context कि भोली ने finally किस तरह से disagree किया जब उसे लगा कि नहीं, it is all of a greed and dowry and everything, तो उसने बाद में जाके she rejected the proposal of getting married. So इस तरह के question में whenever you have a सब पार्ट हियर, लाइक इसका सब पार्ट क्या है कि द फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन सेज दैट एजुकेशन इज ऑलवेज अ ग्रेट असेट इन द लाइफ ऑफ अ वुमन. सो हियर यू आर गोइंग टू गिव सम हाईलाइट टू इट. Highlight the importance of education. Write about 2 to 3 lines related to this. Then you link to the story. ऑलराइट, अब यहाँ आप स्टोरी कैसे स्टार्ट करोगे? अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आपके वर्ड लिमिट कम हो रहा है, तो आप क्या करोगे? आप भोली के बारे में थोड़ी सी हाईलाइट दोगे कि भोली कैसी थी, उसका हाउ वेल शी वॉज विथ हर स्टडीज एंड वो कितना एजुकेटेड थी एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड देन यू आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट द मैरिज इंसिडेंट. ऑलराइट, सो जब आप इस तरह से आंसर्स लिखोगे, सो यू विल गेट more words and you will be able to write a good content. Okay, now the second one is, one should never judge a book by its cover. Elucidate the statement in reference to the poem The Tale of a Custard Dragon. So here again you're first going to talk something related to one should never judge a book by its cover. You're going to write 2 to 3 or 4 lines related to this, and then you are going to connect it with the reference of the poem which the question is asking you to write. कि फिर आप उसको relate कर दोगे the tale of the custard dragon से, that what were the series of incidents which made the narrator think that one should never judge a book by its cover. All right. Now the last question, mention the 2 stories about the origin of tea. Now यहाँ पे you don't have a scope to add something extra, so you need to stick to the point. One was that Chinese incident and other one was that Indian incident. So Chinese incident was that there were some leaves, and when that person used to boil the water, he one day added some leaves and then it gave a really nice taste. So that's how he invented tea. And the second tale is the Indian tale, that when the people who used to go into deep meditation, they used to chop off their eyelids so that they don't feel sleepy. So it was found that the people who used to chop their eyelids, unhi eyelids se they used to grow some kind of these tea leaves or something like that. So that is the next story. So you just need to stick on these 2 stories while you answer this question. So students, that's all. That was your section A, B and C, the unseen passages, your grammar and the writing section, and your literature section. This was the paper. This was the entire pattern of the paper. I hope you all have noticed the marks distribution. You have now come across like how or which type of questions come, or they usually comes in paper. So this is how you are going to prepare. I've given you certain tips and tricks to answer the questions. You just need to keep those tips and tricks in your mind while attempting your English paper.